Anikam Dohadevan, everyone. Om Sahana Bhavatu, Sahana Bhunaktu, Sahaviryam Karavavai, Tejasvinavaditamastu, Ma Vinvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Very good. So we'll share the screen. And today is September 11th, famous day in the U.S. And we are starting with a review of the Lasum Satsang, which answered the question, how do we get rid of karma, or in Tamil, kanma malam? Okay, we skipped that. We did that one last time. So the key to how we get rid of karma, meaning the fruits of karma, is shown in this word, kanmam puchita, to experience the results of one's deeds. So that's half of it. It's going to come. Every action has a reaction, as we looked at in Yoga Swami's quotes previously. I didn't repeat them. So the karma is going to come, the karmic fruit we're talking about, the reaction to the action we did. So that's half of how it gets resolved. The other half is, oh, okay, sorry. This is Yoga Swami's quote on that. Every action has a reaction. What is done with the eye reacts in the eye, and what is done with the leg reacts in the leg. There's always a reaction to every action. You must meet situations simply as they arise. So, meeting the result is half of it, how we resolve it. The other half is meeting the result with wisdom, rather than emotional reaction. So that's the key. We just wait for the karma to come, and when it comes, we try not to get upset. We try to handle it with wisdom, try to be centered, and if we manage to achieve all of that, the karma goes away. If we don't, then we create a new karma in the process. So we looked at the first three principles 2 satsangs ago. This is a talk, if any of you don't know, it's in what is Hinduism book, 10 Principles for Effective Karma Management. So the basic one is forego retaliation. If we retaliate for the split second before we retaliated, there was no karma, and then we created a new one. So we came into life, say, with 100 karmas. The action came to us, we were down to 99, but then we retaliated, so we are back up to 100. No progress on the karmic counter. Accept responsibility is the philosophical principle, which can be hard to do emotionally. But the idea is, as we know, is that you have attracted this experience to you. You have a big magnet inside of yourself that attracts everything that happens to you. And some of it is based upon your past karma. Others just based upon current thoughts. So you have attracted it. The other person is just the messenger. And as they say in English, don't shoot the messenger. Don't blame the messenger. If it wasn't that person, someone else would have to return the karma to you. It's a package that's determined to be delivered. Then we get a little more subtle. Forgive the offender. So if we don't forgive the offender, we're still holding on to part of it. We're not letting the karma totally go. And then last time we did the Karma Management Principles 4 through 8, which we're now reviewing. Consider the consequences. So this applies both to responding when something happens to us, as well as just generating a totally new action. Learn to think as a karma manager. What is the karmic consequence of this action? Do I want to face that karmic consequence? Okay, so quite often our actions are based upon an emotional reaction to what someone has done or said to us. The consequences of such actions have not been clearly and carefully thought about. Someone has insulted us, so we insult him or her back. If we did reflect, it would have been seen that the consequence of harming someone else with our words in the present is for us to be harmed again in the future by someone else's words. This behavior creates an endless cycle of being harmed and harming others, which is only stopped by our considering the consequences before acting and not harming back. And Mahatma Gandhi is quoted as saying, "An eye for an eye will make the whole world blind." So to instinctive retaliation ultimately makes the whole world angry. The habit of considering the consequences before acting can be developed at an early age when parents and teachers utilize the positive discipline methods of facing the natural and logical consequences of one's actions. So we can tie it into positive discipline. When children act, there's a natural consequence. Sometimes the natural consequence is you can't let a child get run over. That would be the natural consequence. So you have to provide the logical consequence, which is explaining that if you hadn't intervened, the child would have been run over. Insightful letter from Lord Ganesha, dictated by Gurudeva on consequences in Gurudeva's book, Loving Ganesha. Keep track of your paces, for your walk makes marks. Each mark is a reward or a stumbling block. Learn to look at the step you have made and the step you have not made yet. This brings you close to me. So each step is a reward, positive karma, or a stumbling block, negative karma. And we get the quote from Gurudeva. Consider the consequences. It is our reaction to karmas through lack of understanding that creates most karmas we shall experience at a future time. So that's the challenge. Reaction to karmas through lack of understanding, which we could also say lack of acceptance. Tirukural, amazing how many verses it has that relate to this, points out the karmic consequences of harming others. All suffering recoils on the wrongdoer himself. Thus those desiring not to suffer refrain from causing others pain. So, present actions. Often when karma is discussed, it is the idea of it being an unchangeable fate. Where we have total control is how we act in the present. That creates our future. So that's a very important point. I've heard many people tell me, karma, what can I do? Everything's going to happen. It's fate. It's unchangeable. Well, certainly the reactions to your past actions, they're fairly unchangeable. They can be changed, but for many people, they're totally unchangeable. Some can change them a little bit. Some can change them a lot. But for most people, it's looked at as unchangeable. So what can you do? Well, how you act in the present is creating your future. That's where you have total control over your karma. So that's the point that's being missed. And with that in mind, of course, what do we want to do for our future? Fifth principle, karma management, is create no negative karmas for our future. Now that we have a good grasp of the karmic consequences of various kinds of actions, what is needed next to progress even further in the management of karma is a firm commitment to refrain from actions that create no negative karma. Perhaps we should all take a pledge, such as I promise from this day onwards to refrain from all actions that create negative karmas. How do we know if a specific action will create negative karma or not? We can look at scriptures. Tirukkural may mention of it. We can ask a Hindu religious leader his or her opinion. If young, we can ask our parents. And once we get the knack of it, our own conscience will be able to provide the answer most of the time. So it's not that hard to understand the consequences of an action. So then we have Gurudeva's insight, create no negative karmas. Wise handling of karma begins with the decision to carry the karma we now have cheerfully and not add to it. A firm decision to live in such a way as to create no new negative karmas is a sound basis for living a religious life, for following the precepts of Dharma and avoiding that which is adharmic. Nicely said. Tirukkural also comments on this. What good is a man's knowledge unless it prompts him to prevent the pain of others as if it were his own pain? Then we have some theism here. The sixth principle of karma management is to seek divine guidance. Brings in the idea that karma management does not have to be done totally on our own. Help is available. Divine help, in fact. Such help comes from none other than Lord Ganesha, who has the duty of helping sincere devotees manage their karma in the best way possible. Once through sincere worship, an individual develops a personal relationship with Ganesha, he naturally drops off any remaining adharmic patterns of behavior and becomes fully established in a dharmic life. That's the Ganesha in Kadava Temple, for those of you who don't know, quite tall. Not only does Lord Ganesha help one become established in Dharma, we talked about the box of Dharma before, but in the best dharmic pattern for this life, known as Swadharma, our natural occupation and duties to family, friends, relatives, deceased relatives, community, guru, and temple. In other words, as a general long-term pattern, we should choose a dharma that's more challenging than we've had in previous lives, and that way we develop new abilities, we mature the soul. If someone who was a brain surgeon in their past life delivers mail in this life, they're not going to mature the soul any further. When we seek his permission and blessings before every undertaking, Ganesha, as the Lord of obstacles, guides our karmas through creating and removing obstacles from our path, similar to a mother's watching over her young children at play. So the creation of start the other side. When we think of Ganesha as the Lord of obstacles, generally, he removes the obstacles that are in our way. But he also puts them there, and the way to think about that is if you are a young child with a mother watching over you, she's very careful that everything that could hurt the child has been put away and can't be accessed. So Ganesha is protecting us. Swadharma, Gurudeva. Such a life is the fulfillment of all previous efforts and thus erases the uncomplementary deeds and adds beneficial ones. So a next birth can be most rewardingly great and useful to the whole of mankind. And theism is in the first chapter of the True the need to draw close to the deity and the benefits of doing so. Draw near the feet of him who is free of desire and aversion, and live forever free of suffering. Nice one. Oh, question for you. Can a negative karmic reaction be mitigated? Mitigated means made less negative. If so, how can this be done? The seventh principle of karma management is mitigate past karma. Once we have stopped acting in ways that create new negative karma, our life will be sublime enough to focus on ridding ourselves of karmas of the past, mitigating them, meaning to make less harsh, painful, or severe. To better understand mitigation, let's make another comparison to the judicial system. You commit armed robbery and receive a 10 to 20-year sentence. But due to good behavior in prison, you are released after only 5 years. You have mitigated your sentence, making it less severe through your current good behavior. Example that Gurudeva gives us, you are destined to lose a leg in this life because you caused someone to lose his in a past life. If you are living a selfish, low-minded kind of life, the karma would come full force and you would lose your leg. However, if you are a kindly person who regularly helps others, the karma would be mitigated, and you might read in the morning paper about someone losing a leg, take on the emotion of that experience as if it had happened to you. Later on, when hiking, you stumble and your leg is injured, but not severely. The full force of the karma was softened by your kind and helpful actions. A number of ways karma can be mitigated. See if you got some of them. Living a life that adheres to virtue and fulfills duty. Just doing that, following dharma, mitigates some of the karma. Helping others, being of service. Regular worship. Pilgrimage is an excellent way to generate an intensity of worship which allows one's karma to be changed by the grace of the gods. Vows, such as observing the 6 days of Kanda Sasthi in a traditional way. Penance, prayashchitta, is like punishing yourself now and getting it over with, instead of waiting for your karma to manifest a punishment in the future. So we have Gurudeva's thought on the principle of mitigating past karmas. When pre-dawn morning pujas, scriptural readings, devotionals to the Guru, and meditation are performed without fail, the deeper side of ourselves is cultivated, and that in itself softens our karmas and prolongs life. So the vigil. Just holding a regular vigil softens our karmas and prolongs life. Tirukkural mentions good deeds. Be unremitting in the doing of good deeds. Do them with all your might, and by every possible means. So I need to stop here. We have time restriction for tomorrow's Zoom satsang with Concord. I don't want you to get ahead of them. Then it's really complicated. We're having a Bala Alaya starting tomorrow. Bala Alaya, small temple, making a small temple. This is the process of taking the power out of the Kadava temple, Nandi Mandapam, Balipidam, Kodimaram, storing it in a small temple, very small model, so that the Silpis can start the construction work, which is to put a new cladding on it. In other words, it's going to be sawed narrow and then a cladding, ornate cladding put on the outside of the, particularly the Nandipedam is going to really look upgraded. So the Silpis, when they get here, will be working on that in the afternoon. So we need to take the power out of it. You can't work on something that still has the power of worship in it. Oh, thank you very much.